Hey everyone. So in this video, we are going to take a look at how we can securely store sensitive information in our SharePoint list. So let's assume you are building an application that has the screen where user can log in or sign up if they want to create an account. So if you are using SharePoint list as a data source in the backend, right? So you are going to store the email and password in that list. But it is not recommended to store such sensitive information in your SharePoint list. So you might seen a lot of videos where they explain you just have to create a SharePoint list. You have to give the proper role assigned to them, and whenever user logged in, then they will have to search in that list whether the logged in email or password is correct. Then they can successfully log into the system. But there are a lot of drawbacks because SharePoint is not the best data source to store your sensitive information. But let's say if you are building this application and you want to store it in SharePoint. So here I will show you how we can enhance the custom permission of SharePoint to store that information. So this is just a login screen I have created. As you can see, it has a email ID and password field. By default, the email will opt in as a logged in user. Password you will have to enter. And I have buttons for login and cancel. At the bottom, I have another action like if this is an existing user, it can automatically logged in after entering the password. If the user is new, then they will have to create that I am the new user and I want to create an account. So the button will change to create account instead of login. As you can see, the email I have disabled because there might be a case. So let's say if user enter the wrong another person email ID, then they can easily bypass the security, right? So for the sign in, this is not disabled field, but for creating a new account, the email ID is disabled and it will take the by default logged in user email ID, right? Then I have the SharePoint site, and in that I have created a list called as login credentials. Here I am going to store the data like email ID and password. So let's say in order to create an items in the SharePoint list, user will have to use the minimum user will have to use a contribute permission, which is the minimum permission level required in order to add items in the SharePoint list. If you are aware about the permission level of SharePoint, what we can do, we can just see the permission level quickly. What permission level we have? Go to permissions for this list. So currently, as you can see, this is my Power App streaming SharePoint site, and I have the by default three permissions: the full control, edit, and read. This site I have shared with everyone in my organization, which will have the read control to the user. So you know that it won't work if user try to log in because everyone has the read control, so they can't actually add in the login credential SharePoint list. So what we can do, instead of giving them edit permission to the whole content, because let's say this is your intranet site and you are just storing the list. So this is just an example, right? So what you can do, you can share only the credential list with the everyone instead of sharing the complete site with the edit permission. What you can do, you can just share the specific list with the specific permission. For that, you will have to break the permission inheritance. So how you can do that? You have to go to list setting. You go to permissions for this list. You will have to click on stop inheriting. So what it will do is it will break the inheritance and it will stop taking permission from its parent site. Right now this list has a custom permission. So what I can do, I can select all of this. I will remove, and for this list only, I am going to assign everyone a contribute permission. So there is a default group. We have that everyone, that include everyone in your company or organization. I'm going to assign the role of the contribute. I'm going to share it. Just hit refresh. Here, one thing to note, everyone will have ability to create and edit item in the SharePoint list. Site collection admin have the full control over the list, even though their name and group is not mentioned here. So I will go to login credential list again. So let's play our application first. I'm going to refresh it. So let's say there is no data, even though I sign in, it will give me a error message that incorrect email or password. For this, I need to create a new account. So I will create a new account. I will enter the password. Let's say, so you can make this a password field, but for this demonstration, I am just using a text field. But in PowerApps, we have option to make this text field as a password. So that instead of this text, the dots will appear. So I will create a new account. As you can see, I have logged in. I will go my SharePoint list. I will hit refresh. You can see the entry is added here. Now I will open the another user account. From this user account as well, I am going to create a new account. So you can see both users have logged in and the data is stored here. But there is one drawback. After you give the contribute permission, every user will have access to the SharePoint list. They can view another user entries as well. So let's say some developer build an app. They use this internet site to store the SharePoint list and the email ID and password. So what if some user know what the list name is and what is the site? So they can directly open this list on their end. So let's say here is my user one. I have logged in as the user one. And what if I know the list name and I directly hit that list? So you can see I can see any user email and password. I can directly copy the email address and password and I can bypass the security. So how we can improve our security role here? So in our SharePoint, we have the custom permissions where we can build a custom permission for the SharePoint list. We have the default permission like full control, edit, contribute, design, and read. If you want to create a new permission, you can also create that. For this, we are going to use a custom permission where we are going to give the add access only to every user. How we can do that? We will go to site contents. Then we'll go to site settings. Here you can see people and groups. Just click on that. Click on more. So here as you can see, there is a Power Apps training members, owner and visitor. So we are going to create a new custom permission first and then we are going to assign it to the selected group. So for that, you have to go to site permissions, click on permission level. So here by default, total 5 permission are displayed. So currently everyone will have the contribute permission. So they can add, update or delete the list items. We are going to create a new custom permission. That lets user to add items only. So just give the permission name and here I'm going to select add items. I will not check any of these. I'm just going to click on create. Now what I will do, go to SharePoint list again, click on list setting, click on permissions for the list, select the group, click on edit permission, and here instead of contribute, just select the add items only. This is the custom permission that we have just created. Click on OK. Now you can see there is a add item only permission level has been set to the everyone except external user SharePoint group. Now what I will do, I will just go to our SharePoint list again. I'm going to delete these entries. I will come to my Power Apps. I will refresh and from here as well. So notice I am currently logged in as a user 1, and here I have the SharePoint list displaying. I did not refresh this list yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a new account. I'm just going to click on password. I will say create. So it has added a new entry. From another user as well, I'm going to click a new entry. So I will go to my SharePoint list. So now the reason I'm able to see this list, because even though after breaking the permission, because I'm the site collection administrator for this site. But let's say if I go to user 1, so this is the user 1, and let's say if I refresh this list, so it will say access required. You don't have access, but if you remember, I am able to add the items in this. So that's how we can use the custom permission. So we gave the add access only for this list. So even though any user know what is the list and what is the site, and even though if they got the URL and they just hit the URL to see all credential, they will not have access to the SharePoint list. So it doesn't mean that you can't add anything. Yes, you can add, because we have set the permission in such a way. So this is how you can enhance your functionality and enhance your, what we can say, you can use the custom permission level in SharePoint to manage the sensitive information. So there are lots of articles and lots of blogs are about, if you are if you want to store sensitive information like email ID and password, SharePoint might be the not the best way to store it. But if you don't have any other choice, you can use these kind of things. You can manage the permission level so that user cannot bypass your security, right? So this is how the application was built. Even I click on logout, let's say from here as well, from the user, when I click on logout, and if I enter the password, if I click on login, it will say incorrect email or password, because I think the password is incorrect. So I'm going to put the another password. Yeah. So if the email ID and password matches, the user can directly log in to your application. So for this permission kind of thing, you have to aware about what are the different types of permissions available in SharePoint and how you can create the custom permission. So let's say if you are in different kind of scenario where you have to give the add or edit access only, not the view access. So what you can do, you can just create a new permission level. You can just click on the check boxes, whatever the requirement satisfies you, and you can grant the permission to the selected group. So let's say we'll check the permission again. Go to site contents, click on site settings, site permissions, and here you have the permission level. If you want to create a new permission, then you can just write the name here, give the description if you want to, and here that the list permission. So let's say if you want to give the add only, but let's say if you want to add, you don't want to give the view permission, it won't work, because if you add the item, then you can view it. But if you want to restrict the user by editing the existing item, you can just uncheck the check boxes, right? So there are lots of option here. You can read about them. The description is already given, and you will have to create a permission levels according to your choice. So in this way, we can create a custom permission in our SharePoint and use it to store our secure information in SharePoint list. So if you have any doubts or questions regarding this, please let me know. Thank you.